Nice to meet you. This is Dr. Kim from Richgo.
Hello, this is Kim Ki-won Richgo.
It seems that a cold wind is blowing through the pre-sale rights market, which had been soaring in popularity due to the new construction boom. With change in calculation method for transfer taxes, the pre-sale market is seeing changes. It's even reported that negative fees are emerging in Seoul. So today, let's have a discussion about this in a little bit more detail.
First, let's take a look at the related article. The government is a handshake. So, when trading subscription rights, there are many cases of lost transactions. So now, under these conditions, the buyer is the one bearing the transfer tax. After the interpretation was changed, from the buyer's perspective, there's no longer a reason to buy pre-sale rights while having to bear a significant transfer tax. So, what happened as a result? The transactions of pre-sale rights are rapidly decreasing and prices are dropping significantly. There's no merit to it. So, what does that lead to? The burden of transfer taxes is high, that the urge to downsize is increasing.
So, how much have the transactions actually decreased?
Yes. If you look at the transaction data, in December, the number of pre-sale transactions in Seoul was 41, a 35% drop from 63 transactions the previous month. In August of last year, when transactions were very active, there were 82 cases. So compared to that, it has dropped to about half.
It's dropped a lot.
Yes. So, why is the trading so sluggish right now? In the end, in November, the Ministry of Economy and Finance mentioned that the change in the interpretation of hand transactions is quite significant. So, as you can see here, previously, when the buyer bore the capital gains tax arising from the transaction, it was only applicable for the first time, and the tax amount was added to the transferor's amount. They've set it up so that the entire capital gains tax for hand transactions is added to the transferor's amount, making it a reasonable way to conduct the transaction. So, just hearing this, you might not really understand what it means, but it can happen. So let me basically explain this in simple terms. The sale price was 1.2 billion won. Pre-sale rights are traded at 1.7 billion won. So, the burden of the capital gains tax is 540 million won previously. But now what happens is, the burden of the capital gains tax has increased to 966 million won.
That's almost double.
That's right. So, who is supposed to bear this cost?
The buyer?
The buyer has bare cost. So, the transaction amount has nearly doubled. So, what is the total burden amount for the buyer? It rose from 2.2245 to 2.6666.
In fact, from the buyer's perspective, if the capital gains tax difference is so significant, there's really no reason to buy the pre-sale rights without taking on that burden. That's right?
So you're basically buying it for way more than the current market price. So, from the buyer's perspective, it's not attractive at all. Rather, if you buy this, you're mad. You'll buy it at a higher price. So, as demand drops, we're seeing negative feedback and transactions are now hiding their traces.
Actually, the tax law has changed this time. Maybe that's why. But wasn't the transaction volume really high just last year?
Yes. Still, the trading of pre-sale rights was somewhat active.
Deals happening.
But there was a small but significant reason for that activity. What it means is that the interests of the seller and the buyer aligned with each other. For example, from the seller's perspective, if I just sell the pre-sale rights normally, then the taxes are just too high. So they want to reduce the taxes. Well, then from the buyer's perspective, since it's a new construction and new construction is so popular, I can expect to make some profit from the new construction boom. So this is where the conflict of interest came into play. So from the seller's perspective, they thought, I can lower the price to reduce taxes. And from the buyer's perspective, even with capital gains tax, I can buy it for less than the current market price. With rising prices, this alignment worked, but now it doesn't work. The appeal of pre-sale rights has disappeared. But now this no longer works. At all, really.
This time, the appeal of pre-sale rights has disappeared. As a result, transactions have dried up, and there are even cases where deals are being made in Seoul at a negative premium, right? I think it has appeared a lot. That's right. Are there really a lot?
It's not a lot though. In some areas, the premium has dropped, like in Sangdo-dong, Dongjaku, Seoul. Pre-sale rights listings are listed 30 million won lower than the original selling price. Then, recently in Wolgye-dong, there were a lot of pre-sales for places like Seoul-wan, I-Park, and in Gangseo-gu, there's also Dongcheon Hill State. But there were national brands, you know, right? Also, there are tax disadvantages related to pre-sale rights. So, there must have been demand for people wanting to sell their pre-sale rights for a price of 1, right? That's right. There must have been a lot. But now that just doesn't work anymore. As a result, demand has naturally decreased, and since demand has dropped, the pre-sale rights market has completely frozen up.
It was already frozen, but I think there will definitely be side effects. On the flip side, as the calculations for these pre-sale rights transactions change.
Yes. So, as transactions shrink. Now let's perhaps lower the transaction amount in the contract. Let's just bring it down. Down transact. But this is illegal, and it could cause problems later on. If down transactions are caught as illegal, the losses can be significant. Down transactions are illegal acts that can lead to penalties for underreporting, additional taxes, and fines for non-taxable exemptions. So, if you mess with such actions, it could lead to serious trouble. So, you can say that there are almost no transactions.
We actually want to thoroughly check and analyze how much the lottery transactions have really decreased over time. So let's take a detailed and comprehensive look at the data available on Richgo.
The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport improves visualizing actual transaction prices. Let's first take a look at Seoul. We can classify Seoul apartment deals as pre-sale transfers. All right, I'll check by year. Let's take a look, big picture. So the average number of pre-sale rights transactions exceeded 2,900. Were many pre-sale rights?
But in
other words, that was when the real estate market in Seoul was experiencing a significant upward trend. And what happened after that? There's nothing.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. In 2021, 2022, no. In 2023, 2024, there was a slight increase, but it's very minimal. Let's take a look at the data for the entire country, not just Seoul. This is the pre-sale rights deal. Pre-sale rights, deal 70,000. It increased significantly from 2013, 2014. This was the beginning of a significant improvement in the overall real estate market, breaking away from the previous downturn. And how long does this hot market last? And in 21, 22, 23 and 24, although the trading was a little later than 22, the trading was still quite small. So, the market for the resale rights in this area was already in a bad situation recently, and the interpretation of the hand-to-hand transaction changed at the end of last year, making it even more frozen.
Looking at the data, it seems that pre-sale rights transactions won't be very active in 2024 either.
Yes,
There are policy aspects to reduce, and construction costs have also increased greatly.
Construction costs risen.
I think that will have an impact as well.
Yes, the pre-sale prices are really high. However, I believe there will be a significant adjustment in the second half of 2025, but there will inevitably be a rebound. The thing is, real estate has a cost basis. So, the cost consists of land and buildings, and land prices can go down. However, the costs of construction have risen significantly in recent years. That's why I think land prices in the provinces can be lower. But just because construction costs are lower, it doesn't mean that the provinces will be cheap. Land prices aren't cheap. That's why I believe that starting around 2025, there will inevitably be a major turnaround in the regional real estate market. That's how I see it.
That's right. You've been mentioning that continuously. Right. Yes. Do you think that investing in pre-sale rights has lost its appeal?
No, not case. Since there is always a repetitive cycle in the real estate market, I think that picking up unsold properties and opportunities in local areas, starting from the end of this year, is a very good strategy. The provincial market is frozen. There are few redevelopment or reconstruction projects happening. The supply is very low. So, I think there is some potential in the local market, and of course, we need to look at it carefully with data. I think it would be really good for construction companies and others in the area to start looking for opportunities in the provincial market little by little.
Yes, and moving forward, since the calculations have changed quite a bit, we need to pay special attention to that. I think you need to make a transaction. In this video, we discussed the newly changed capital gains tax calculations and talked about the current state and outlook of the pre-sale market. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. Thank you.